officer, the chief learning officer, something like that. And it's not just the chief learning, but really what precedes it is engaging your kids and yourself to be motivated to get done what you need to get done, basically. So as you show up and think with us about this, I want to frame this to think about motivation more than anything. And as I was fiddling with this and just trying to think about it, I thought, here's the challenge, and this is what we all run into. Almost all of our conversations are really about this sort of thing. And that is, how do we motivate our kids to do what they need to do? How do we motivate ourselves to do what we need to do? How do we motivate our spouses? And it's not like we can control motivation, but we can certainly, I guess, interfere with it a little bit. And what I want you to know is that if there's no motivation, there's no motion. So the battles you experience and the struggles are always related to motivation. So here's the power of a mom. I remember my mom. One time it's probably ninth grade, and we're starting a civic club through the YMCA, and we were naming it as kind of like a fraternity type thing or something. A whole bunch of clubs, and we were in one. And in our context of being in a club, I was going to run for vice president. And I was talking to mom about it, and she said, "Why not president?" And it wasn't that she was saying you should be president, but she was asking me, why not? And then later, other things I did, I was in the youth government, like Senate program. It was a kind of student Senate type thing. We'd go to the state capitol, et cetera. And it was that sort of thing. Why not, why not be governor? And so I was. Just because someone would ask a question and invite me to actually think about it. So when you're looking at motivation, your role as a mom, you need to start with you, but then you want to think about it with your kids. So the notes I have on doing anything, no one does anything without motive. Like there's no such thing. It doesn't matter. Eat, sleep, create problems, create solutions. There's some motive in play for sure. So no motivation or no motive and no motion. So would it make sense to always start anything you do by asking some questions? I think we don't deal with this properly because it's so automatic. We're not paying attention. This is part of the power of learning to do math or reading or whatever. You're actually learning to slow down to understand what you're really looking at. And the people that don't slow down don't get it. They just think it's automatic. They jump from reading something, think they know what it means, and do. Instead of learning to develop the skill of tuning in to the actual process. So the questions I'd want you to ask are things like this. What do I want? Why do I want it? What's my motivation? What will feel good about seeing this happen? And what will feel good about working on this now? So when you have a child, let's not, well, picking on you would be smart. So why do you homeschool? What do you want from homeschool? What do you want for your children? What will feel good about homeschool, about doing it well, whatever. I mean, some of this is you have to define what winning means and then figure out how the game works. But it's, what's going to feel good about working on it now? And now we go to your kids. So a child may be frustrated about math or not want to do it or not writing or something. And it's like, if you start asking, well, how can I help them feel good about it? And I keep saying feeling because there is no motive without a feeling. It just doesn't happen. Even if you think you're into purpose or something noble or some idea, hey, it just feels good or feels better. We can at least say it that way. It's going to somehow play into this motivation and this feeling. And so when you look at a child, you're largely asking, how can I help this child feel good about doing their math? Now, they may not like math. I get that. But they can still feel good about learning something, about getting it done so they can get to something else. I have two people I know. One is a daughter-in-law and the other is a friend. And and this friend one day I was watching him, we were talking about it, and he was eating a piece of pie and he was eating the back end, the crust first. Usually we start at the wedge. It was a little wedge piece of pie. And I said, "Why are you doing that?" He said, "I hate crust." So he's getting the crust out of the way so he can enjoy the pie. Didn't think about not eating the crust. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
So literally a daughter-in-law was watching her one day eat pie and she turned around, she was eating the crust first. And I looked at her and I said, "You hate crust, don't you?" She said, "Yes, how'd you know?" Because these actions are going to be motivated by something, and it's something related to feeling. So how can I get my kids to feel good about math? In other words, not doing it. They certainly feel better about arguing with you and not doing math than doing it. So we have a motivation problem more than anything. And it could be they're not very confident. It may be they're having to do more than they're used to. Maybe they've gotten this pattern of not knowing how to run their emotions. And so they're busy. I don't feel like it, so I don't have to. And what I'm saying is, yeah, but you know what? How can I get myself to feel like doing it? You know? And there are, Jody we might clean a garage or something. I remember one time and she says, this Jody, she says, we cleaned it up. She said, "Doesn't this feel wonderful to have this clean?" And I went, "Not at all, because I just want to get to my car." However, it did feel good to help her out. It did feel good that she felt good. It did feel good to get that out of the way so I didn't have to think about it. There's still motives for me. And when you, especially as a mom, start thinking about being the chief motivational officer for your kids, and start thinking this way and understanding that game, it's not about whatever they want to do, we do it. That's just uh, turn a person into a dysfunctional narcissist, something whiny baby, crazy. Child left to himself will be a shame to mom. But if you start thinking about, no, we're going to do this, and it's not necessarily how I can make it fun, but their motives. So they have their own motives intrinsically. And if you can connect some external to it so that they will feel good about it. And sometimes it's just about that. How will it feel to have your math finished on time? And how will it feel to sit there for 3 hours and work on it, if that's what you do? So I just, I'm sharing the concept itself, but asking yourself, even before you start a project, what will feel good about working on it? What will feel good about completing it? Is there something else I should do that feel even better, that's more important? I don't know. But I can say this, that if you don't address this piece in some clear way, it's going to be a problem. And what I'm really talking about is leadership, because leadership is really about motivating people to make progress to a better place every time. That's the game. So those are kind of my initial thoughts. What are you thinking?
Well, y'all know this is an incredible man that thinks these things that I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense.
We didn't talk about this, and
and
I'm sorry,
oh.
you didn't read that right. Yeah, read that credible man and amazing. No, I'm kidding.
But one thing to pause, to take, I feel like, especially moms, maybe dads too. I don't know, mom, me, we just go through life. We're just the next thing. We got to do school. We got to feed people. We got to clothe people. We got to, it's just all blah, 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 like that. And we've talked about this before, in other areas, but this is a 5 minute, a 2 minute thing just to pause, or you can make it a longer thing if you have, okay, I really want to conquer this with them. What, let me think through these questions. But just to pause and even ask yourself one of the questions, the ask yourself what do I want here? Fred's been talking about that at different times here. We've talked about before, even homeschool in general, take some time in the summer to spend some time thinking through how you want homeschool to go this next year. And just we always think we don't have time for those things, or I don't know what we think. We just don't stop to think about it. But the blessing that comes from doing that at the beginning is humongous, so to say. It's just,
Is that Latin?
it's going to save you time, energy, mental energy, emotional energy. So you can say that much better than I can, but
Well, I don't know that it has to be said perfectly. It just has to be understood, but basically. So yeah, so that's part of the game. And if you don't pause to pay attention to it, I mean, even this list, you're busy, I got to do this and this and this. And some of you, your whole what feels good is being able to get in bed and going, phew, got something done. And part of what happens to us is then we get caught in cycles and we don't get things done and we feel bad. And then like we get hooked on some drug to feel better. And the drug is we eat or we call a friend or we, phone a friend or something. And we jabber and chat instead of engaging in what we need to do to get something done. So it's always about these feelings. And when you're caught feeling bad about something, one of the things I heard someone say that they have these 10-minute sweaty conversations. So they know life has these conversations that are frustrating and conflictive or difficult, but he noticed that they're like sweaty, like you sweat for about 10 minutes and then they almost always turn out well because we finally deal with it. We talk about it. We check on it and we sort something out. So, maybe the theme today, you have questions, throw those questions out. But I'm going to say that behind so much of this stuff is motivation. And when you look at somebody's action, you can pretty much conclude that what they're doing is what they're motivated to do. And for some reason, they feel better about doing that thing than they would about the opposite or something different. And so you can have an incredible insight in this if you just pause to honestly look at it. So there's the thought, as it were. So I didn't ask everybody, tell me where you're from. Hi all. I'm in the chat. Hope it's working. I bet it is. And what kind of questions you have, even about motivation, about anything else. It's we're easy in that regard. But honestly, it's probably a good thought to just say, give us an example of where you struggle with being motivated or where your kid has struggled with being motivated. And I'll show you kind of how to ask some of these questions. And by the way, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I'm not that good at it. I'm fair, and I'm just sort of really tuning into it because it's kind of a big deal. And I haven't paid that much attention to how this affects me, in some day-to-day stuff. I just noticed myself yesterday. I had time. I got some things done. I worked on something I wanted to work on. I made some progress, but it's like, really? And I noticed I hadn't, everything I do well, I stop and think for a moment of why I want this to go. So this meeting, we want to encourage you. We want to empower you. We want to get you to think in a fresh way because it's hard to walk straight and think crooked. And so if we can get you to think in a fresh way about what you're facing, then that helps you and that promotes the cause and it impacts, we hope, the kids and life and things we learn from you and pass on to other people. So all this is related. So what kind of questions are on your mind about motivation or about anything? It could be, or really, should we use number 2 pencils? I don't care. It's just all fun to me. So West Palm Beach, fun. And the UK, good to see y'all. So what kind of questions are on your mind? Or let me just say, could be a question. It's not really my question, but I got this friend who knows somebody who bumped into someone and they had read this question. So I want to ask it. We can do that too. It's just as good. It's just as good. Would you do me a favor and close that door?
Yeah.
My 88,
I'm thinking some people came on maybe after you did the list of questions. Do you want to?
yeah, that may be, but yeah, we're talking about motivation. I can say them again. You want to learn to ask yourself things like, I know I can do this, a little pad. Yeah, so I said, would it make sense to always start anything you do with what do I want? Why do I want it? What's my motivation? What will feel good about seeing this happen? And what will feel good about working on this now? Now, I'm well aware I did that quickly, but that's all fine because I'm just going to let you read it now. So when you look at these kinds of questions, see if I can switch this camera, see if I know what I'm doing. Yeah, well, except I got a light on. Yeah, so here are the questions. What do I want? You can do this for your kid. What do they want? Or you can ask them, what do you want? What would feel good about completing your math? What would feel good about writing now? What would feel good about getting school done by whatever? This is part of what motivations do. Hey, we're going to go to something as soon as you get it done. As soon as you clean your room, we're off to the pool, making up something. But it'll feel good to go to the pool. It'll feel good to get the room done so you can go to the pool. That's all how humans work. So what do I want? What do I want? Why do I want it? Excuse me. What's my motivation? What will feel good about seeing this happen? And what will feel good about working on this now? There might be some more questions, but that's a good starter kit. Don't you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
Yeah. So we're back. There's a lesson. So let's see questions. Let me switch over to our chat. So how to motivate my son on getting his work done on time and stop daydreaming. Yeah, so this is a common issue. And in motivating your son about getting his work done on time and to stop daydreaming, what you can look at, I kind of need more detail, like what's the subject? Does he do this on every single subject? Is that common? But what we're actually looking for is looking at this child and saying, okay, why is he motivated? Why does it feel better to him to daydream and to not get his work done? Well, the daydreaming it'd be fun to find out what he's daydreaming about, because that might be something useful. Honestly, you could at least get a child to do a lot of writing by writing down their daydreams. You're going to daydream during math. Why don't you write your daydreams down? What are you thinking about? Just write that one down, write that one down. That probably wouldn't be fun, so it might be better to get the math done. Again, what's going on? I'm saying math. I don't even know.
You said every subject.
Okay, every subject. Good. I want to pay attention. Yeah, so when you look at it in every subject, it's like, all right, so why would it feel good to finish? And they need some kind of motive. And that's why we like to say, why don't you limit the time? If you give them forever, then it's going to be miserable. So you got to do something fun in between. You got to break it up rather than making the goal to get it over. Like your goal probably, or his goal is, my goal is to work on math, and mommy's goal is for me to work on math. And I would say just changing the definition to say, no, the goal is actually to finish your math. And then when you put a time limit on finishing your math, and then if you'll actually look at where they are, like honestly, if you started asking your child on math, how many problems do you have to do? And let's just make up a number. Let's say they're 20. And you go, how many have you done? Right? And how many more to go? And when's the time limit? And if the time limit is reached, sorry, that's going to be afternoon homework instead of what you were going to get to do if it's afternoon. The reason this is important, what they know, it's a strange phenomenon about humans. Like when you get in a line at an airport for Starbucks and it's a really long line, well, that's difficult at that point because you have so far to go. But once you get about halfway in, suddenly you can look back and see the progress you've made, and you look ahead and you feel hopeful about getting it done. So if they can tune in to what they've gotten accomplished, they have a sense of progress, and they can do it with time. We know, hey, we're through we're through at 12:30, so it's 9, so we're making progress, or we're on trips. They'd say, what number are we on? I'd always do it by numbers. And I'd say, we're on number 5. Oh, halfway there. We're on number 7. Oh, we're getting close. We're on number 9. Hey, everybody, we're on number 9. So that sense of progress is part of the motivation, and the sense of being behind and not progressing is part of motivation. But it's a lot about actually having a clearer goal than not work on it, but to actually get it done. And then have, payoff or accountability stuff, it'll feel good to avoid the pain,
Yeah.
so, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can always stick in there as a carrot and a stick for a while if you need to do that. But I think this showing him, we even use timers sometimes at the beginning, trying to show a kid this. Okay, I'm gonna set the timer for 15 minutes, and I'm gonna come back and see how many problems you got done or how many pages you got read in that time. And so they're doing it, and then they can see, oh, well, I actually can get 3 math problems done or 6 math problems done in that time. And so, good job. And you can reset it, and you don't have to keep doing that forever, but it's a good prompt, not prompt, but it just more motivation, I guess. You've got that timer clicking away or blinking away, and then the child sees, yeah, I can do that, and you say, yeah, I can see you can do that, and we're going to keep doing that.
So look at this. This is great. I so appreciate her in this. I use a timer. I told him when he is done, we can go to the park, which he suggested, and it makes no difference. Okay, so there, I don't know the whole story, but there are a lot of things going on there, and that's great. So use a timer. That's good. As Jody said, it looks like there's no consequence. I guess not get to go to the park. But the trick is, does he really want to go to the park? He suggested it, going to the park. But I don't know if that's something that really motivates him. Maybe it does. But I look at this and I just say, so what is it that is going on? And is it because it's too hard? Is it too easy? Too many problems? Where is he? So it's like, it's like, does he understand actually what's expected to him? It's what happens when the timer ends. Does he get to keep working? If he gets to keep working, the timer's useless. Like a timer actually has to be the end of it. And so and of course, if you would enjoy going to the park, that'd be something too. But with this kind of structure, if he really wants to go to the park, it's like, we'll go to the park when you get through with the math. It doesn't need a timer. You get through, we'll go. If he's motivated to go. So when you look at these things, you got to realize it's got to connect some intrinsic in him, and you really have to structure it in a meaningful way. What was the writer that you say, I love deadlines? Who's a famous writer? I forget who it was. He says, I love deadlines. I love watching them just wish past me, like, because they didn't mean anything.
Well, I was even thinking about the park. This is kind of weird, but okay, yeah, we'll go to the park, but for every 5 minutes you go over, that's 5 minutes less we're going to spend in that park. So you might get to go to the park for 5 minutes, or you might get to go to the park for an hour. That's your choice.
Yeah, said differently. That's a good idea. So said differently, um, we could go to the park. We'll go to the park. Let's say we're going to go to the park at 11. And uh no, we'll go to the park. Yeah, we'll go to the park at 11. We'll come home at 12 for lunch. And whatever extra time you take is just less time at the park. So it's your choice. And I think this is a big key. Saying to a child, it's your choice. It's your decision. Because a lot of times they need that empowerment that it's their decision.
Even if you have a different negative consequence, just we would say, I'm sorry you chose to not be able to do whatever, or sorry you chose that.
She said, I do that too, Miss Jody. Which part?
Where are you looking? Oh. Yeah, not sure. Oh, maybe just taking
Yeah. Well, the park probably doesn't motivate him. I mean, if I had a way to do it, I'd actually just start crying. Well, is he doing too many to crying for what?
How old is he? Sarah, Sasha, can you tell us how old he is?
Yeah, so I mean, it almost sounds like whatever's being required of him is too hard. So it's like if he would do half the problems, or maybe he's too advanced,
or maybe he's just figuring out ways to get
manipulate you. I mean, if I had my way to do it, it'd be more like, hey, we'll go fishing. Let's say we had a pond and we'll go fishing. And then when you get done, I said, I'm going fishing at this point, or I'm going to the park and you get to go with me or not. Yeah, he's 8. And so so what kind of, on any subject, 8's pretty young, depending on what you're working on. But if it's reasonable and he's not getting it done, he's either got some special needs issue, or he is just manipulate the system, and you haven't figured out how it works.
A year above grade level.
Yeah, he's a year above his grade level, but is it easy for him? Can he get it done? Can he do one problem? Can he do 2? Does he get them right? What percent of the problems does he get right? So that's part of what you'd want to look at.
And are you seeing this behavior in other areas other than school?
Yeah.
Does he obey?
Question
does
too.
He, when you tell him to do something, does he obey you?
And if there's something he does do, when you say do it and he does it, that might be the insight you need. Why? Why does he do that? What's the game? I mean, honestly, what you're describing is painful. It sounds to me like maybe you don't have a spouse involved that's backing you up, or I don't know if you have other kids or what the game is, but it's like he doesn't understand he's got to get this done. And I suspect he just works on it forever and they feel trapped, instead of saying, you have this long to work on math. If you get it done, it could be you still go to the park, but if you get it at this moment in time, we're stopping. It's over. You can't work on it. New subject. And what you don't get completed, if he's capable of completing it, you're going to have to do later in the day. You're going to have to do in the afternoon. And then I'll just let you sit there. You can sit there from 3 to 5, 3 to 6, or whatever when supper is, and work on it as long as you want. It's just up to you. And you can either cry about it or get it done. And when you get it done, I'm going to dance a jig for you, just so you know how great it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't know. Melissa throws out, I want to get to her question about summertime, but she says, what curriculum are you using? I found my son used to watch videos of people teaching, he would daydream. So I changed curriculum to where he's reading through textbooks independently. Yeah. And that's part of the trick of trying to understand and study your own son, or your own child. But yeah, some of these curriculum cultivate that. They're not challenging enough. They allow you to drift. We found that with even reading, we'd let kids, they got to where they were laying down reading, whatever, and they weren't reading well. We actually had to have them sit up straight, just on that level.
And it could be, we don't know the whole situation, but does he know what's expected? have you set it up to where you're going to stick with that? You know, sorry, I've let you just take all the time you want to in these, and it frustrates me, and then it frustrates you
Yeah.
because I'm
I
frustrated.
mean,
This is a new game. This is what we're going to
yeah,
do.
I honestly still would say, let's say it's 20 problems in math or whatever I was reading here is well, he has a certain number of problems. Can he get them done in that reasonable time? Let's say it's an hour and let him work on it and get it done. And I'd keep doing the exact same lesson until he gets it done in the right period of time. Because that'll show him he can do it and he'll have to really learn that stuff. I mean, literally,
The next day and not
I
the
might do it for 5 days in a row. Just we're going to do the same thing every day, and so your upset has to go away because you already know how to do them. So just get them done, and then once he sees that he can get it done in time, a lot of people wake up and go, "Oh, yeah, you caught me," so to
so
speak.
yeah, it's either yeah.
So let me shift to shift. Why, if you have more insight, type that up, but or put in the chat. But I want to go back to this great question on the summer. So my sons are very enthusiastic and work through their curriculum quickly. Uh, where we end up having quite long summers. We're very motivated. How did you structure your holidays? So holidays and summers are a little different things. We schooled all summer long, basically. And so in schooling all summer long, I feel like this video is way behind. In schooling all summer long, what we found, we would take breaks in it. I'll get to that. But in schooling during the summer, we found that they didn't lose momentum. They could go at a pace they wanted to. We'd certainly have holidays and breaks, but we just kept it up because what we found is we did it in the mornings, and none of their friends were up or whatever. They played happened after lunch. They had the afternoon. Yeah, so this is significantly behind for some reason, or that picture is. Maybe everybody's seen it live in real time. They probably are.
Yeah, so we started at 7:30. They were finished by noon. They had the rest of the day to
Yeah,
hang out with
and
their
nobody,
friends
they
and
never noticed it, but they could stay on pace. And they had to go back and relearn it, etc. So that's how we did it. If you don't do that, I would suggest you do have a summer game plan. Like I went to a school in high school, I had to read 5 books and write reports, or go to 2 Shakespeare plays in our town, and write reports on them. You could still have a summer, a looser curriculum, which might be topics of interest, things they want to study. Maybe their sunny summer study topic. It could be their summer reading list, that kind of thing. But that was the game. For holidays in general, like Christmas, whatever, we would give them time off for the most part. We'd have, because we started as they get older, to match it to their friends, etc. We didn't want to torture them. Um, but most of them kept reading, kept doing stuff anyway. Um, we might do some special things in holidays. I might go watch a movie, take them to a movie, and then take them for nachos, and then debrief the movie, what was good, bad, moral, immoral. So they're learning critical thinking, etc. But it's that kind of orientation, depending on what you want. But I've never understood why we think we can take breaks from learning. Why don't we just keep learning, all the time? Let's just learn. I mean, our son finished calculus when he on his 15th birthday, right around there. And so basically, when he finished calculus, and you think of it at 15, beginning of 15, he wouldn't have done that if he had had summers off. And that was his pace. We didn't make him do, it's just you're doing your work every day and you learn to do it, just like jobs, just like life, whatever else. Holidays, make them special. For us, our holidays were 2 weeks or three.
three completed. Yeah.
Yeah, three, because it's 2-day travel and all the rest. So we'd have 3 weeks at the beach, lake. But in those things, we did modified homeschool. We do some math on the way in the car. We had long drives, from Texas to Alabama. And so we do math then, or they'd have some reading that they'd do daily. We might do a little school before they get to the beach or something like that. But we just kept them in motion with some learning. And really, some is good. It's just like bathing, generally we bathe every day. but you could take a bathing holiday. But I just think, a whole summer of not bathing would be a little much.
And even if you're not going to do your formal schooling during the summer, definitely, I mean, everybody that I know, even public school kids, they have some like you got to read for 30 minutes a day, or you got to kind of review math for 30, something like that. But I would just say spend some time thinking how you want your summer to look. And maybe I would have some kind of loose structure of the day. Maybe you're doing your kids are into crafts and you are too. So you plan out some craft time and then some outdoor time, some nature time. You have some skills you want to teach them, cooking, skills around the house. Um, hey, we're all going to learn origami, paper folding this summer, just things like that. Just go ahead and think through some fun things so that you feel like, yeah, we did some cool things this summer.
Cool. Hope that's helpful. Melissa throws out. Yep. Very helpful. Great. So here's another one. Another question. I have a third grader, kindergartner, and a 1.5-year-old. That's fun. And that I'm still nursing. I find myself overwhelmed when my 8-year-old doesn't focus and get his work done or doesn't follow directions. So overwhelmed is something in you. So you must expect something different. So that's a challenge. But I guess what I want to know is what's overwhelming. I mean, that part of the challenge is if you'll just say this phrase over and over, it won't last forever. I promise you, it will not last forever. That your 8-year-old third grader won't focus and won't get work done or follow directions. So you might need to slow down and explain, yeah, we've got a challenge, and that is you're 8 and you get to leave here in 10 years, roughly. And in that leaving in 10 years, we got to get you ready. And the way we're going to get you ready is you've got to learn how to focus, get your work done, and follow directions. These are things you have to learn. And so if you'll team up with me, we'll figure it out. If you don't team up with me, it's just going to be miserable for both of us. And I would love for us to just enjoy this. So there are 3 skills in play. One is focus, and that should lead to get his work done, but work done in a timely fashion, and then following directions. So some of it we might need to break down onto a skill level and say, all right, let's learn how to follow directions. And directions work like this. The CIA kind of figured this out forever. I think the CIA could be the FBI. But in getting directions like to somebody's residence or place back in the days when you didn't have GPS and all the rest, they'd learn to say, how do I get there? And they'd say, you go down here, you turn, blah, blah, the address. And they would say, let me say that back to you. You said turn, 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 turn. And then what'll happen, it'll be different. So on instructions, even with an 8th grader, you'd say, what are the instructions?
8-year-old.
I mean, 8-year-old. I'm sorry, third grader, 8-year-old. So yeah, if you say if it's follow directions, you can say what were my directions or what are the directions, and have them say them back, and then you can tweak it and then have them say them back, and let them get down very clearly what the directions are, so that we practice. Every skill has to be practiced. Focus is a matter of coming back to it, and you focus, right? So we do one problem. Now you can look away over there outside the window, see the squirrel, and now come back and do another problem. So focus is always about coming back. That's the way the game works. It's a little different than concentrating, but we want to stay focused in that matter. And then getting his work done again. I'd love to know what does it mean? What happens when he doesn't get his work done? That's what I want to ask. What happens when he does? How long does he take to do something? And what happens when he, quote, doesn't get it done? I know you get overwhelmed, but I'm saying what happens to the 8-year-old third grader? That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a delay in the system, obviously, but most all of these things are quite that way. When something has a legitimate, absolute, true deadline, it's shocking how people get it done. Like, it is quite rare for people to be late to their own weddings. I mean, it's so rare they make spoofs of it on TV. It is quite rare for guests to come to a wedding late. It happens, but it's one couple out of 100 or something like that, or two. It's hardly anything because the deadline matters, the moment matters, and everything's that way. You get in college and you wind up thinking you got to turn the paper in or you flunk. You got to be there for the test. Right. Yeah. So, as far as consequences, not actually as far as consequences, but what actually happens, like just describe the story. So I'm answering back this question about when he doesn't get his work done, then what happens? And then what? And then what? And it could be anything. Maybe you have a consequence, but there's natural consequences. How long does he take? Like, let me make up a story. He takes He'll work on his math problems for 3 hours. And then what happens? Well, he's so exhausted and crying and he falls asleep. And I know he's starved to death, so it's lunchtime. So I make him a sandwich and I let him play a little bit. And then I say, we're going to have to get back at it. And then he cries a little bit and gets frustrated and kind of goes through a similar thing. And he does it. If he does 2 or 3 problems, that's enough. And then I let him go and play and do something else. And it's like every day, the same thing. So that's what I'd be looking for. Like what actually happens, you know? So, well, it's kind of, and you could tell me consequences. He doesn't get his work done. And after a certain amount of time, when he doesn't get it done, he has the consequence of having to go in his room and be alone. And then I'd ask, does he like being alone? Oh yeah, he loves it. And so, and what does he do in his room? Oh, he plays and other stuff. Yeah, that would be reward, right? So I find him bouncing his ball or giggling with sibling. I'll get upset and ask him to get back to work. He will probably get it done, but because he's distracted, you can see a reflection of that in his work. His work isn't good. Yeah. So again, what I'm asking is when he doesn't get it done, like he's not doing it. But like when he doesn't get it done, like at what point do you say he didn't get his work done? Leads to me repeating myself so many times and getting upset and yelling. I hate that for us. Yeah, and I would hate that too. That would be awful. So you're part of his system of getting his work done. And so the question is, how long does he have to do it? Does he understand it needs to be done? And if he doesn't get it done in time, what happens? So when you know those things, there's a different game. So you don't have to nag them or say anything to them. It's just obviously, I mean, it seems obvious to me you don't have a stopping point.
Doesn't get to play with his friends, no video games for the weekend. Does that motivate him? Does that work when you do that? If it doesn't, then we need to change that. I mean, if he doesn't care.
Yeah, part of the problem with 8-year-olds is when we have long-term motivations, like for the weekend or something, they don't function as well that way. It's challenging. His dad gets involved and gets spoken to. He cries because he knows we're disappointed. Well, or yeah, he might be.
Well, I'm just saying maybe we need to just for a while add in a motivation, a positive. Hey, this is we're gonna stop doing this. I don't like getting upset. I don't like
Well, so yeah, hang on. I still don't understand. So one more shot at this, okay? So literally, how long does he have on whatever subject you're talking about? It may be all of school, but how long does school go? What time does it start? What time does he stop? What's that? Or just a subject, math, or if he's doing math, or reading. How long does he have to work on it? And is there a stopping point? That'd be the main thing. Because I'm not sure I can follow if there's a start and there's a stopping point, what's going on. Because when he's told to stop, then what happens? And this is more like you got caught in the system that you've got to be sitting there nagging him and saying, get that, get back to work, get back to whatever, rather than getting a clear consequence. So 9:30 to 2 is our homeschool day. And if he doesn't get his work done by 2, what happens? Perfect. So 9:30 to 2, I guess lunch is in there somewhere. So if he's not done by 2, what happens? And does each subject have a certain amount of time for it? Like, what are the subjects? What are the time? I'm not trying to be tedious or tease this out too much, and this may or may not be interesting to people, but it's always the same type game with everyone. So this is really what the story is. Like, how many subjects? Is there a set amount of time for each subject? And does he have to stop, or does it bleed over? Because unless he's learning to stop and get to a new subject, we're in trouble. There's a problem. It'd be like, hey, we're going let's say to the park. We're going to the park at noon. Ta-da. And we're going to the park, and we are going to the park then. And then he isn't ready, doesn't have that, and he wants to finish playing with his dinosaurs, da da da. And so we don't go to the park to 12:30 or 1. Well, that means he's just running the system. So math and language arts can be 45 minutes. Social studies science about 30 minutes. Yeah, so you'll change his life if you'll set a time limit. Not about, but a time limit. Here's how long you have on this subject. It starts now and it stops here, and here's what we expect you to get done. And if it's a reasonable amount, that's it. And then you stop and you move to the next subject. You stop, you move to the next subject. You stop, you move to the next subject. And then come back later in the afternoon and he has to finish them. Nobody will keep doing that unless a sociopath would.
She says he ends up getting it done. It's just she feels like it's not good quality. She does have limits.
Yeah, 2 p.m. is the limit, but subjects in schools aren't endless. That's great. You can't do school all day, but each subject needs a limit. And if these bleed over, there's a problem. Just like with jobs, just like with anything, you have a certain amount of time for lunch, you have a certain amount of something. That's how it goes. You either have something to accomplish or a time limit, usually both. And so if you have a certain amount of time on math, certain amount of time on language arts, certain amount of time on this, and you have a reasonable amount to get done, there's no reason they can't get that done in that time, then you do that, and then you stop, and then they're going to have to do homework. Sorry. Yeah, so that, honestly, I think if you would change to, like, you've got it right, you understand it. If you have a 2 p.m. stop time, we're not going to spend all day on school. That's great. That's a macro. So do the same thing on micros. We're not going to do more than this on this subject, this on this subject. And that way they can learn how to pull it off. What we do with our kids, if they would get their subject finished early, they could either go on to the next one and get through earlier in the day, or they could take let's say they finished 10 minutes early. They go take that 10 minutes and go do something for 10 minutes.
That's actually more the way we did it. Because we had 9 to 10 is math, or, we had it actually on the clock, for most days. And so then, if they finished 10 minutes early,
they go play. And part of that is because you had 5 kids, and what's the advantage of getting through early? You're still going to have to wait to play with your siblings or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
So, so there's the thing. All right. So hope this was helpful. May seem tedious, but I'm just saying that humans will do things that are in their best interest. And for whatever reason, in this example and all these, the child thinks it's in their best interest to make this a problem and cry and drag it out and whatever else. And setting them up for success would be, you have an amount of time and you're going to learn to do quality work in that amount of time. And they're just 8, so it's not like they're going to be there this next week.
That's true. And I do throw in brief for a week or two. If you want to throw in a reward just to get him on the new schedule and stuff, go do it. Throw in a reward.
Yeah, and the video game could be an example. So he could do some video. If you get done in time, you get video game during the week, 30 minutes or something, making up something.
Just
30 minutes. And if you don't, you don't. And so that's real immediate for them, so they can understand that. But they almost have to learn that they can do it. Like once they notice, oh my gosh, I could do it, then they know forever. All right, we appreciate you guys. Hope you found this helpful. Invite your friends, pass it along, and have